Good morning. My name's Kevin. I'm an alcoholic. I break out my handy dandy big book. Take care of some house cleaning items first. First off, I want to thank the committee and my host Paul and Larry for everyone who's reached out to me. Everybody that's here this weekend, it's been phenomenal company to be in the presence of, and I'm eternally grateful. Excuse me, I'm going to adjust that. I'm eternally grateful for having met you, and I know my life will be enriched just by doing so. Thank you for our recorder over here is doing an amazing job. Let's go ahead and give this comedian all a hand. It's just, I think it's you guys have done a fabulous job. Amy mentioned it last night about the basket that was in the room. We walked in and you would have thought that my wife just hit the lottery. She was like, oh my gosh, I have been to places with you all over and I have never seen anything like. She was just super excited, and there was this very loving card inside, and I just want to, I can't thank you enough for inviting me just to be a small part of this. I truly am just grateful to be here. My sobriety date's June 18th, 2006. I have a home group, Jaywalkers Group in Mumford, Alabama. We meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Closed meetings, big book literature. We do practice all three legacies, 36 principles. I'm super proud to be a part of that group. And let's see, I have a sponsor. My sponsor has a sponsor. I think that's about takes care of all of that. So let me get a couple things out of the way. Number one, there's a couple of things that might be a little humorous. I'm not as funny as Amy. I'll just go ahead and tell you that right now. First time my sponsor ever heard me give my story, I was probably about 2 years sober, I guess, and he comes up to me and he says, I have heard your fifth step. There is nothing funny about your story. So I tried to spend the first 30 minutes of it being a comedian, and so anyway, yeah. So I don't wear a coat and tie because I think I'm important. I wear it because you are. That's one thing I need to get out of. The other thing is this, is that I may say something that hurts somebody's feelings or upsets some people in the room. If I do, you just come up to me afterwards and you let me know that I hurt your feelings or I upset you, and I'll apologize for it. I won't mean it, but I'll apologize for it. Because the fact of the matter is that I'm going to share the truth from my experience, and as page 29 tells me, I'm going to share with you from my own language, my own point of view, the way I established my relationship with God through the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. My message typically appeals to newcomers. It typically appeals to people who've been in the rooms for 5 years who are dying. And that's about it. So, anyways, I'm not going to talk a whole lot. I'm not, if you come to expecting to hear a 45-minute drunk log, you're going to be disappointed. I'm going to qualify myself a little bit right here in the beginning. I'm going to talk about some of my drinking, and then I like to talk about the solution. So with that being said, the first time I drank, I was 17 years old. I was a gifted athlete. I was a gifted student in high school. I come from a very loving home. My parents were married until the day they passed away. My dad was a police officer, so he knew what I did before I ever did it. Always. He knew what I did before I ever even did it. So, yeah, 17, it's a late bloomer in AA. I mean, I heard Amy last night talking 11 to 12. 11 to 12, I didn't even like talking to girls, all right? But anyway, so I'm 17 years old. It's after a Friday night football game. A buddy of mine who was 15, but looked older than me, he says, let's go out and have us a celebratory drink. And I said, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do it, And so we went by this Piggly Wiggly. They're in Talladega, Alabama. I went to Talladega High School. So we go to the Piggly Wiggly in Talladega because we knew there'd be this old homeless guy out there. His name was Turkey Neck. It wasn't his real name, but that's what everybody called him. I don't know his real name, but he went by Turkey Neck. And we knew that he'd be sitting out there with his wagon And if you give him a little bit of money to get him something, and he'd buy you something to drink. So that's what we did. We give Turkey Neck some money and said, hey, don't spare the change now. Get the good stuff for us. He said, oh, okay, I'll do it. Turkey Neck goes in. He comes back out. He hands us 2 6-packs of Colt 45 and 2 bottles of Boone's Farms. I guess to him that was the good stuff, because he had him a bottle of Wild Irish Rose. So me and my buddy, we hop in my 1986 Buick Regal, and we take off to this little wash hole in a place in Bemiston. It's a housing development, but it used to be a cotton mill, and it was all cotton mill houses, and there was this wash holes, and I backed my Buick Regal down there with the T-tops out and had some music going, and me and my buddy Tim, we was just gonna sit right there and solve all the world's problems in one night. And man, and I'm gonna tell you right now, from the very moment that I started drinking, even though I was this gifted athlete and I was this gifted student, I was popular in school, I didn't have trouble getting dates, believe it or not. I didn't look anything like I look today. There was still always this added pressure. There was always this thing that I felt like I needed to keep up, like I needed to be better. If I made a 94 on a test, I needed to make a 96 the next time. If I did great at this baseball game, I needed to do something better to the next one. It was always, it just felt like it wasn't enough. And from the instant that I took that first drink in, it's like the world just backed up 10 feet and I could breathe. And I knew right then that I wanted to experience that feeling for the rest of my life. I just didn't know that I was going to spend the days, weeks, months, hours, years chasing something that I was never going to catch. And so we start popping tops. I don't know how many I drank, but I drank until there was nothing left. The very first time that I ever drank, and I didn't understand this like I do today, I did not have the power to stop. I was going to drink until something or someone stopped me. I was going to have to pass out. I was going to have to run out of liquor. I was going to have to run out of money, or I was going to have to go to jail. I never just made a conscious decision from day one and says, I think I've had enough. I've never just pushed myself away from a bar and says, bartender, give me a glass of water. It just never happens. So we're drinking. And I turn on the lights and everything around me spinning. And I drive him home with one eye closed, about 15 miles an hour. You know that one-eye drive. I get him home, somehow or another, it didn't kill him, didn't kill me. And I get back to my house and it's about 1:30 in the morning. And I walk up and I stick that key in the keyhole, very careful not to wake either one of my parents up. And I open that door and I walk through that front living room, and I was starving to death. And their bedroom was right off the kitchen. There's no way I was going to go in that kitchen and fix me anything to eat. So there was a pack of saltine crackers was laying right there on the coffee table. So I picked those saltines up and I'm just putting them in my mouth, and I'm going to town on those saltines like it was a T-bone. And I turn around to go to my bedroom, and I run right smack dab into my mother. And my mother, she was a lady about this tall. She was probably, what, baby, about 5'2". She was really short. And I run right into her, and she looks at me, and she says, have you been drinking? I shake my head no, and I'm chomping down on them crackers. She said, let me smell your breath. And I blew those crackers all over my mother. And she says, you better get back there and go to bed before your father wakes up. And well, I already knew it was busted in because there was no secrets between them two. He was going to find out as soon as he woke up. And so I go back there and I lay down on the bed, and I had this king-size water bed. And I lay down on that bed, and all I want at this point in my life is for this bed to stop moving. I am praying, God, if you make this bed stop moving, I swear I'll never do this again. And the bed, it's like I was out on the Titanic or something. That thing just kept rocking. And there was a space about 1.5 feet wide between my bed and the wall, and that looked like a good place to just let everything go that I'd taken down that night. So doing what any logically thinking drunk 17-year-old kid would do, I got to clean it up, right? I can't leave that down there for my dad to smell it when he wakes up. I'll be even more trouble. So I go get the vacuum cleaner. True story. And it wasn't like these vacuum cleaners that you see today. It was, I promise you, it wasn't a Rainbow. It didn't have any water in it or anything like that. And so I go get this. It was one of those old Electrolux, you know, they look like rockets. They were about this long, about that big around. And I'm vacuuming, it's got the bag in it. And so I'm vacuuming this stuff up, and I said, okay, I'm good now. And I get a washcloth and I put on my head and I lay back down on the bed. And again, I just want this bed to stop moving, please. And this process was repeated 2 or 3 times until it got to the point getting a vacuum cleaner was just too much work. Whatever's in the floor is just going to stay there, and I'll suffer the consequences. So that was my first experience drinking. And even though I love the feeling, I love the taste, I love the smell, there wasn't anything that I didn't love about it other than getting sick, you know. And I thought to myself, the next day I woke up and I had this big pounding headache, and just, you know how you feel. You just, oh gosh. And I thought, man, this isn't normal. I shouldn't feel this way after having so much fun last night. You know, I just should not feel this way. And so I made a vow right then that I was done. I'm never going to do that again. And I didn't for a couple of weeks. But see, for me, it wasn't a matter of, I couldn't drink every day due to circumstances and where I lived and the job that my father had. And he wasn't just a police officer, like he was the captain of the police department, right? So it was just one of those things that circumstances wouldn't allow me. But every chance that I got, I was with buddies at the lake. We were drinking out on the boat. We was fishing. We was skiing. We was jumping off cliffs. If we were at a sporting event, we were drinking, we were tailgating. It did not matter. Every chance that I got to drink, I was going to drink. And it was always the same thing. I was going to drink until something or someone stopped me. And I just thought that that's how everyone drank. And when people were drinking, they'd be like, oh, I think I've had enough. I better get a sandwich. I'm starting to feel it. I'd be like, what are you talking about? That's when you drink more. But I just never could understand those weirdos. Like my wife. Anyway, so this goes on, process is repeated. I go to college on a baseball scholarship. Now circumstances allow me to drink every day. And I would carry it to class with me when I went to class. I would drink before practice. I would drink before games. I'd stop a little bit for the game, but the whole time that's all I'm thinking about is, man, I'm ready for this thing to be over so that I could go drink. And long story short, I get kicked out of college, I lose a scholarship, I come back home, I'm 19 years old, my dad says, you can stay here till you find a place to live, but it's gonna have to be quick. I was, Dad, what's your timeline? What's quick to you? Because might have a different definition of what quick is. He said, like a month. You're going to have to find somewhere to live. You're going to have to get a job. My only job as a parent is what he told me from the time I was this high. My only job as a parent is to prepare you to live in a world without me in it. And you can't do that under my roof. He understood his assignment a lot more than I ever understood mine as a parent. I can tell you that. Anyway, so I get this job at Winn-Dixie. I meet this lady. She comes in with this little baby, right? She was barefooted. I swear to you she was. She was barefooted and she had this gorgeous little baby. And I was like, oh, that's the ticket right there. That's my ticket out. And I've always loved children. And so she comes up and introduces herself to me. She was a manager. She was just out on paternity leave, right? And I'd started while she was out. And so she asked me out on a date. Not that same day, but after she came back to work. And so we go out on this date and then go back to her place, and I just never went back to my parents. I just stayed there with her, right? She's got this little baby, and we just live together, and we get engaged and then get married, and then we have a son together, Brandon. So Tessa is my daughter. She's this little 2-week-old baby, you know, that I just laid eyes on, And then we have a son together, and Brandon, and the pattern of drinking never stopped. It never slowed down. No matter how much she pleaded, no matter how much she begged, I was never going to not drink. And as much as I wanted to, as much as I wanted to be present, as much as I wanted to be in their lives, and to be the father that I had, I just wasn't capable of doing those things. When I read that line in the book where it says, alcohol is my master, at first I couldn't relate to that. And it took another human being in the rooms of AA to point out to me, well, did you ever put it before your children? Absolutely. Did you ever put it before your wife? Absolutely. What about your parents, your job? I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Every single thing I was like, yes. Did you ever put it before God? Alcohol was indeed my master. When I finally realized that, it was a little bit easier for me to start accepting some of the things that I had heard. Sorry about that, y'all. Anyway, so we get, she's not going to tolerate it, stay married for a few years, get divorced. My dad says, you're not coming here. Figure it out. I had a brother who lived in Nashville. This is my first time to Tennessee, well, not today, but then. I had a brother that lived in Nashville. He worked at Opryland before they closed. He sang in a show there called Country Music USA. And my brother's a very talented singer. And he had an apartment up there on Briley Parkway. I called him up, hey, little brother, got a couch for me? Yeah, come on. So I hop in my Dodge Ram 50, bucket seats, with a laundry basket full of stuff in the back of it, and I drive to Nashville. And it got to be so bad with living up here with him that he didn't have the heart that my dad did. It was also about the time Opryland was closing. He didn't have the heart that my dad did. My brother just couldn't say, you can't stay here. Instead, he enlisted for the United States Army. He said he's getting the heck out of here. He's not living with me another day. He said he would, and this was right in the Iraq War, the first one, right? He said he would rather go over in the Middle East and get shot at than to live with me. And that's what he did. He joined the Army. And here I was in Nashville, Tennessee, in my laundry basket full of clothes and a Dodge Ram 50. And that's what where I spent about the next 6 months. I'd call my dad from time to time, and you about ready to quit? I think I'm getting close. All right, well, let me know when you're ready. Called him again a couple weeks. You about ready to quit? I'm getting close. Okay, well, just call me back when you're ready. I love you. Finally, he told me one day, he says, you know, son, as much as I love you, I'm not going to love you to death. I'm not going to have that blood on my hands. You want to kill yourself slowly, you go ahead and kill yourself slowly. But you're not going to take me and your mother and the rest of the family down with it. I refuse to do it. When you get ready to quit, you let me know. I called him up after about 6 months of panhandling and doing what I had to do to get what I had to get, and recycling and writing bad checks, whatever I needed to do to get what I had to have to drink. And I called him, and he drove from Talladega to Nashville, and he filled my tank up with gas, and I followed him back to Carroll Circle in Talladega, and he looked at me when we got there, and he says, you got 2 months. Find you somewhere to live. You're not going to stay here. I'll do everything I can to help you, but you're not going to live underneath this roof with us. And I thought at the time that was just cruel as a parent to do those things. And, you know, and looking back now, having had our youngest son go through the things that I'd gone through, I get it. I get it. As long as my parents was going to give me a soft place to fall, or anybody else in my life, I was never going to be afraid of falling. I would just continue on the path of destruction that I was on and taking down everything in my path. Almost instantly, the day we moved back, my dad's best friend was at his house, and he says, hey, we're having to get together. Won't you come up and hang out with us? I said, oh, it sounds like a great idea, you know. And so I did, and his daughter, my dad's best friend's daughter, and I we dated for a little bit back when we was like 15 or 16 years old. And then I had a problem with long distance relationships, 20 miles, that was long distance. I couldn't deal with it. I told her, no, sorry, it's too far. Anyway, she had just recently divorced as well. I knew she was going to be there in her parents' basement. So I said, sure, I'll go. And I'm already plotting in my head. I'm fixing to live in their basement, you know. And sure enough, that's what I did. I go, and then me and his daughter, we hook up, you know, and not like that, not that night, but we just start talking, and I stay the night, and then the next night, and a year or two in, and I'm still there, and then finally her parents say, you gotta go. You gotta go. And when I left, she followed me. She went with me. We got this little single white trailer we started renting, you know, and she brought her 2 kids with her. And I just couldn't believe it, you know. Why would she want to follow someone like me? I'm going to jump ahead now. This is the pattern. You guys have seen enough of it. It was never a conscious decision to stop. June, I do want to say something real quick. I got to do this. On May the 24th of 2000, my dad got bit by a brown recluse spider while he was at work. Didn't know that he had gotten bit by a spider. This was 2 or 3 days later. That night he almost died. His blood pressure went down to 50/20, and they took him to the hospital. He was in intensive care, but it took him 2 or 3 days to even realize that he'd gotten bit. And it was on the back side of his calf. And he had an allergic reaction to it, and it had gotten in his bloodstream, and it just slowly started shutting down his organs. And he was 49 years old when this happened. He had just turned 49 that January. And I'm sorry, August the 24th of 2000 is when he got bit, not May, because it was Christy's birthday. August the 24th, anyway, so he starts shutting down his organs, and he goes from this, you know, muscular 220-pound guy, healthy, that I thought was invincible, and he turned 49 that January after he got bit, and my mother was carrying him back over to Birmingham to the hospital, and he had a port in his stomach that he had to get drained because his kidneys wasn't functioning, so he'd have to go over there once a week or every other week to get fluid drained off of him. And they stopped at this little gas station on the way over there, and my dad could barely even talk or walk, and he asked my mother, he says, get me a cigarette while you're in there, just one cigarette. You could buy the square, they call them square, you could buy a square, just one cigarette. It was like 10 cents or something, I don't remember. But so she went in and bought him a cigarette, and she'd come back out, and he was underneath the hood of a little old guy trying to help him get his truck cranked. And that's just the kind of guy that he was, you know. And he told me one time, he says, you know what the difference between a great human being and a bad one is? And I said, no. He said, it's the same thing as it is for police officers, compassion. As long as you have compassion for your fellow man or your fellow woman, you're going to be great. No matter what you're doing, you'll be great at it. Man, he said so many good things, I just never listened. I think he knew that was going to be his last trip over to the hospital. And he lived to May the 22nd of 2001. He was 49. I'm older than he was. I've almost lived as long as I have without him as I did with him. You know, I was 28 when he died, and you just don't think about those things, you know. And I think back on the lessons that he instilled of what it meant to be a parent and teaching your kids to live in a world without you in it, because he knew, wise beyond his years, he wasn't going to be here forever. He couldn't keep doing the things that he wanted to do. And I would love to tell you that I was this great son, and that I was supportive of my mother and of my grandparents, his 2 parents, who were married for 72 years up until December of this past year when my grandfather passed away at 93. But I would love to tell you that I was this loving son and grandson, and I was so supportive, and that I lifted my family up, and But no, that would be a lie. It was all about me. It was all about me because I'm selfish and self-centered, and I wanted it to be about me. I didn't want my mother to mourn the way that she needed to mourn, and I didn't want my grandparents to mourn the way that they needed to mourn. I felt the more attention that I could get placed on me, the better off everything would be. And so that's the way it was. And so anyways, I'm going to jump ahead now to June the 17th of 2006. It was a Saturday night. It was, and I woke up that Sunday morning. It was Father's Day, and none of the kids were there. We had 4 children, 2 from my first marriage. 1, remember, was 2 weeks old that I ended up legally adopting. And then my wife, Christy, who followed me from her parents' basement, sitting here tonight. God dang, 27 years. I can't believe it. She's still here. Anyway, and she had 2 kids from her first marriage. No one was there. She looks at me and she says, if you're drinking when I come home, we're not staying. I'm not leaving you, but I refuse to sit around with these kids and watch you kill yourself. I said, man, I think I've heard that somewhere before, you know. And so I didn't drink. I had plenty to drink that day. I poured some of it out, not all of it. You got them hiding spots, right? I poured some of it out. I didn't pour it all out, not that day. I was like, well, I'm going to keep some just in case. You know, I might need to come back to this. But poured it out. She comes home, I wasn't drinking. She says, nothing selfish like me. She says, what are we going to do? Well, I'm not in this alone, I realized, you know. I said, I guess I'll go to one of them A&A meetings. I didn't know it that New Life was my first home group in Oxford. At the time on Sunday nights, there was a different fellowship that met there. I do know this, that when I got there, I didn't care. I didn't care. There was this one guy in there. His name was Gene. And Gene shared from his own experience. He didn't talk anything specific about what he did, how much he did of it. He shared his experience with how he felt. Just like in Bill's story, if you read Bill's story and you can't relate to any of that, I can't. Winchester Cathedral, wartime day. I mean, you're right. I mean, who can't really relate to all of that? But if you pay really close attention, he's great at describing how he felt. And even in the second half of that story, I've got all of these R's in my book, in Bill's story, that I can relate. Oh, I felt that way, and I felt that way. In a book study just a couple of weeks ago, and we're going back through the second half of Bill's story, and then he's talking about how he feels sober. I have no R's there. I'm like, oh my God, I need to put R's here. I can relate to that today. But all of my R's was on how he felt when he was drinking. And so, you know, this guy shared his experience, and I thought, you know, I could really relate to that guy. Go back the next day. Now, at this point, I don't have keys to anywhere. I don't have keys to my mom's house. I don't have keys to where I'm living. I really don't have a vehicle. You know, nothing. I have this key ring with nothing really on it. And so I go back the next day. Christy has to drop me off at some of these meetings, and because she has to be at work, we're one vehicle family, whatever. I go into the meeting, and I'm going every single day. Twice a day at noon and at 7 p.m. And I'm just hitting these meetings. I'm I'm hammering them out. And this guy named Ivan was there. Ivan says, you need to start getting because I'd gotten a DUI in April of that year, right? I hadn't had my court date yet. So he says, you need to start getting these papers. Just get your notebook. We'll start signing these meetings that you're at. That way when you go to court, maybe the judge take a little easy on you. No, he didn't take it easy on me. Anyways, so I'm getting all these things signed just because. I mean, I didn't really care at this point what happened when I went to court, because I was sober. And I'm just hammering out these meetings. And after a couple of weeks, Ivan comes up to me at one of the noon meetings. He says, you know, you need a key to this place. He gives me a key to the meeting hall. And I can't tell you how great that felt to put a key on that key ring. If someone that doesn't even know me trusts me enough to give me a key to this smoke-filled kingdom, because we still smoked, we still smoked in meetings then. And then I found out, hell, everybody's got a key. You don't have one? Come on, let's go get one made. We'll make sure you get a key. You know why? Because if you're there early, they want to make sure that coffee's made. And so they had this Bunn coffee maker, and Ivan shows me how to make coffee. You know, I didn't know how to make coffee, one of those things. The first pot I made, I didn't know you put the pot under there. As soon as you pour the water in, it's going to start running out. I didn't know that. I was used to mine at home. You had to turn it on, you know. So water's running all over the burner. You're going to kill the burner. Anyway, so I start making coffee. And Ivan tells me, hey, man, we need somebody to take over the supply room. All right, I'll do it. What do I do? You just get the money out of the refrigerator from the drinks and you go buy up all the supplies, the coffee, the creamer, you know, all the toilet paper. So that's what I did. I was handling the supplies and keeping an inventory, and I was keeping up with the money. And next thing you know, hey, we're having a business meeting. You should come. We're about to have elections. I get elected as the group treasurer because I'd done so well with the drink money and the supplies, right? I get elected as the group treasurer. I did not have a checkbook at my house at this point. Now I'm about a year in, 6 months, 8 months, something like that. I'm getting close to a year. So then I would get elected treasurer. AA taught me how to balance a checkbook. I took care of AA's money a hell of a lot better than I ever took care of my own. I can promise you that. Because there was those other people. It wasn't just about me. It was these other people. And I felt this sense of, for lack of a better word, importance. Like I needed to make sure that this was there, because if it's not, these other people aren't going to have it. And it got me out of myself for a little while. And then the next thing you know, I was elected as GSR, and I'm still hammering out these meetings, man. I'm going to 13 or 14 a week. I'm chairing 7 or 8 of them a week. Like, spirit of rotation, sorry you want to chair a meeting, you can't. I've got that night. Pick another day or another night. I'm sorry. You know, it was just, I was going to do as much as I could. We had cleanup days. I was at cleanup days. We had anniversaries. I was at anniversaries. I was manning the grill. I was doing anything and everything that my group needed me to do. And I'm serving as a GSR, and I'm going to area assemblies, and I'm doing all this stuff in my group, and I'm going to all these meetings, and I'm just thinking to myself, God Almighty. And then, you know, in the book where it says, now and then a serious drinker being dry at the moment says, I don't miss it at all, feel better, work better, having a better time. As ex-problem drinkers, we smile at such a sally because we know our friend is like a boy whistling in the dark. Inwardly, he would give anything to take a half a dozen drinks and get away with it. That's how I felt at 3 or 3.5 years in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I wasn't afraid of drinking at this point. I was afraid of dying because just a week ago, I'd taken a gun and put it to my head. I had been in these rooms for so long and listened to so many things and was doing all of the things that I thought was Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm going to meetings. I kept hearing these things in meetings, and I'm not a meeting basher. Please don't take it this way. I love meetings. Meetings have a purpose in Alcoholics Anonymous, and they're not there for me to go dump my problems in your lap. They're there for me to carry a message of hope to the person that's sitting in the corner that's dying from alcoholism, that's never been married, that doesn't have a job, that doesn't have any children, doesn't have a car, doesn't have a house. That was me. I'm dying, and no one is telling me or helping me do anything. Just come back. Meeting makers make it. Meeting makers make it almost killed an alcoholic like me. That's all I thought AA was. I thought, now that was service work. That's service work to my fellow man. That's service work to my home group. But the service work in Alcoholics Anonymous goes a whole lot deeper than that. I can promise you that. Follow me down this triangle. I beg of you. This is an experience you will not want to miss. You will make lifelong friends as you commence on this journey, shoulder to shoulder, as we trudge a road of happy destiny. The promises in this book are so wonderful. When you read them, they're even so much greater when they come true. I was reading and hearing this stuff, so I go to this guy at the next area assembly, and I tell him and this wasn't Alcoholics Anonymous' fault that I was feeling this way. This was Kevin's fault. And I tell him exactly what happened. For the first time in 3.5 years, I think for the first time, I got completely honest with another human being in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I told him exactly how I felt, that I don't want to be here. And if this is all Alcoholics Anonymous has to offer me, then to hell with it, I don't want it. He said, how long have you been sober? He said, I hit a mark like that about 4 years. I said, oh, 3.5. He said, yep, that's about right. That's about right. Next thing he said is, how many guys do you sponsor? I said, I got one, we go bowling on Tuesday nights. I got another one, we get to go to Waffle House on Thursday nights after the meeting, and we sit there and drink coffee. You know, I got some that come over to the house, and we sat down and we watched some football games, and we play some spades on the weekend. He said, no, I'm talking about sponsorship. I'm talking about how many of you sitting down with, eyeball to eyeball, going through this big book, word by word, line by line, paragraph by paragraph, page by page. And I said, none. He said, why not? I never understood the significance of what it meant to really work with others. It's the only answer that I could give him. I've never been taken through the book myself. He says, well, good luck. And he turns around and walks off. I'm like, my God, I just told the guy I'm fixing to kill myself. And he walks away. I said, whoa, wait a minute. You can't leave me like that. He says, first thing you need to understand, if you, in Alcoholics Anonymous, if you want something, you got to ask for it. I said, will you take me through this book? He said, absolutely. He lived 2 hours away from me. He lived in Montgomery. I lived in Oxford. He says, I've never done it over the phone, but we'll do some of it over the phone, and we'll do some more of it in person when we have a chance. So that's what we did. And we're going through this book. And then finally, it didn't take me long to see myself in the pages of this book, right in the doctor's opinion. Right there in the doctor's opinion, it was written just for me when it says, men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. I'm like, okay, yeah. I knew then he wasn't an alcoholic, because if he was, he would have said they love the effect produced by alcohol. Said that sensation is so elusive, it's just out of reach, I'm never going to catch that again. That while they admit it's injurious, they cannot after a period of time differentiate truth from false. That first time that I drank, and the next day I said, oh man, I shouldn't feel like this isn't normal. See, after a period of time of me drinking like that, then all of a sudden I wake up the next day, I remember everything that happened, I don't have a headache, I didn't get sick, nothing that unusual happened. I went to jail, and I'm thinking, you know, this isn't normal. I should have gotten sick. You know, I shouldn't be able to remember these things. I've already flipped it in my head and not even realized it. To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. I just can't understand these weirdos that just drink a couple of drinks and then want a glass of water. Everyone's supposed to be able to, or everyone should drink like me. Like you was talking about Amy last night when she said she bought the case of the Bartles and James or whatever. Yeah, I can relate to that. It says they are restless, I can't sit still, irritable, I'm easily irritated, and discontent. This isn't working. I had become restless, irritable, and discontent in the rooms. That paragraph in A Vision for You, it really, if you think about it, it describes a lot more people in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous than I think most of us are willing to admit. And that's nobody's fault. Well, it's not for me to say that. It's for us to figure out. Unless, now if I can experience that sense of ease and comfort, which comes at once by taking a few drinks. I can breathe. The world backs up 10 feet. This is what I need. Drinks that we see others take with impunity, without these consequences. After, they've succumbed to the desire again, so many do. Well, yeah, because I can't stop starting. Then what happens with us is that phenomenon of craving develops. I'm going to drink until something or someone stops me. I'm going to pass out. I'm going to have to go to jail. I'm going to run out of money. And then we emerge remorseful with a firm resolution. Can't tell you the times that I told my parents, my grandparents, my wife, my children, I promise you, I'm sorry for the things that I did. I'm sorry for how I hurt you. I'm sorry for embarrassing you last night. I swear to you, I will never do that again. And then the next day I'd wake up and I'd go to work, and here I am again. I'm restless, I'm irritable, I'm discontent. Oh my gosh, I can't wait for 5 o'clock. And then see, my parent, all these people in my life, they think I'm just a liar. But if you would have put a lie detector test on my finger when I made that resolution, I would have passed it, because I meant it. I meant what I said. I'm not going to do that again. I genuinely, 100%, deep down with everything that I had in my body, meant it when I said it. But my only solution to the things that was happening in life was to take a few drinks. Just a few this time. It's not going to be this bad. I promise it won't be as bad. We get through these steps. We're going through the steps. He told me right here at the beginning of it, it says, half measures availed us nothing. I don't get half the promises. If you don't like a step, don't work it. That's what he told me. If you don't like a step, don't work it. But when it fails, please don't think that the program of Alcoholics Anonymous failed you, because if you don't work a step, then you haven't worked the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. We love you. We want you to come back. We don't want you to resent AA. We don't want you to die. So if you take half measures and you don't do something, please don't think it's the program. Because if you do that, you haven't worked the program. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time breaking down these steps, because we're getting close to the time, and I want to spend this time here talking about some hope that's in my life today. You know, when I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and when I first heard those 10-step promises, I thought to myself, my God, that's everything I've ever wanted in my whole life. Every single thing that I've ever wanted, and when we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, I'm not going to sit here and just quote it or read it to you. You know what they say. Even alcohol, for by this time sanity will have returned. We will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. Happens automatically. We react sanely and normally. Right? It talks about this miracle. It just comes. I thought, man, the 9-step promises are great, and I love them, and that's, you know. But when I heard these, I thought, my God, that's it. That's what I want right there. And I go through each day and I look for people that I've hurt, or where had I been selfish. And I'm asking these questions all throughout the day as I do this 10th step continuously throughout the day. Where had I been dishonest? What should I have done differently? Do I owe an amend? You know, and I'm asking myself these in situations, and all of a sudden these principles start getting applied in my lives. And I'm getting this real busy life, and I talked about this a little bit yesterday, and I've worked my way down through the triangle. It's coming from this gutter drunk, and then Area 1 elected me to be their delegate for Panel 69 and represent Area 1, Alabama, Northwest Florida at the General Service Conference. And it's just so humbling, and the things that have happened, not to me in Alcoholics Anonymous, have been wonderful. But the things that have happened to the people around me are things that I never, ever, ever imagined that would happen in my life. We talk about the spiritual experience in Alcoholics Anonymous, and you ask people about the spiritual experience, and sometimes people have problems describing what that feels like. I can tell you for me exactly what it is, and this has been my experience, is that most of the time, that spiritual experience, that thing that I'm just looking for to happen, it doesn't happen to me. It happens through me. It happens to the people that are around me. It happens to guys that I sponsor. When I see their families reconnect, when I see them and their wives work things out, when I see their children go on and be successful, when their children call me Uncle KK, those are the things that really, really you don't want to miss in Alcoholics Anonymous. And then it starts clicking with me why he asked me how many guys I'm sponsoring. Because just like it says in working with others, when all other activities fail, well, what are some of those activities? Going to meetings. And I go to meetings, and I'm going to be present, and I'm going to, and my eyes are going to be toward that door looking for a newcomer. I have to go to meetings. That's where I find sponsees. Right? My job's very simple there. It's just to carry a message of hope. It's to share how I established a relationship with a power greater than myself that solved all of my problems. And as long as I stick to that, I can't muddy the waters at all. I can never make it about me if I do that. And that's what I love so much about this program. The oxymorons that we have, you got to give it away to keep it. That makes a little bit of sense to me. You know, and you guys already heard me talk about my wife, Christy, still with me. Still with me. We're neither one of us are in our parents' basement. As a matter of fact, we just moved my mother-in-law in with us in February. This is a lady that me and her, let me tell you something right now, despised one another. I'm not going to tell you what I was programmed as in her phone, and I won't tell you what she was programmed at in my phone from the podium. But you hit me up out here, and I'll be happy to tell you what it was. This is a woman that I genuinely have a true love for today. And I would go to the ends of the earth to do anything for my mother-in-law if I could. The same way that I would for her daughter. You know, these 4 children that I have, only one of them is biologically mine. I got 4 grandbabies, all girls. They all call me Papa. These kids call me Daddy, they call me KK. I don't care what they call me, but they call me. When both of those girls got married, neither one of them were biologically mine. It was me that walked them down that aisle. God, what a gift. I almost missed it. I almost missed it. When my granddaughter was born, my first one, Audrey, some of you seen a picture of her last night. You go on my social media, you'll see those kids. When Audrey was born, her mother, Tessa, the little 2-week-old that I adopted, she had a postpartum hemorrhage and almost died. She was, I was working 3rd shift. They called me, my ex-wife called me and says, hey, come on up to the hospital. Tessa's not doing too well. They're going to have to go in and do emergency surgery. So they do surgery on her. They bring her out of surgery, and she's still, you know, she's out of it, right? And I told my ex-wife, I said, I'm going to run down and go get my charger for my phone. I'll be right back. And of course, me doing what I do, I smoke a cigarette. So I'm about 10 minutes longer. And I get back up there and I walk into the door, and my ex-wife said, thank God you got here. The only thing she asked for when she woke up was her daddy. Seeing her upside down on that table because they was afraid she was going to bleed out, breastfeeding my granddaughter, just a couple of days old. God, what a gift. My mother come to live with me in 2013. Got to take care of her, and she always had some heart trouble. And while she was in the hospital, my brother was in full-blown alcoholism, taking advantage of her checkbook. I was over there on Christmas Day and took her presents to the hospital, and I told my mom, I says, she says, I need to pay my insurance. And I said, well, give me your stuff, I'll pay it for you. So she gave me her card, and I go to pay her insurance. It declines. And I says, Mama, do you have online banking? And she says, I do, but I've never logged in. So I log her in, and I see what's happened and what my brother's done to my mother's bank account. And she's seen the rage in my face. She said, what is it? I said, he's bled it dry. I said, I'm going to kill him, Mom. I'm killing him. She said, it's no different than anything you've ever done. I said, you know what, you're right. I pulled out my debit card, I paid my mother's insurance, and I said, Mother, I've been trying to get you to come live with me for a while. You don't have a choice now. I'm going home, I'm getting your stuff, and I'm taking it to my house. I'm going to get your vehicle that him and her are driving around. I'm going to get your checkbook and your debit cards, and they're coming with me. And she said, okay. She said, don't touch him. I said, I won't touch him. So I moved my mother in with me, and being at this point in my life not selfish and thinking of other people, I said, you know, her heart conditions, I need to learn CPR. So I get trained in a course at work and do CPR. And my mother goes into cardiac arrest in my living room on April 26th of 2014. pulled her out of that chair, that recliner, my recliner, which was her recliner now. And I pulled her out of that recliner, and Christy was there, and my sister-in-law, and a really good friend of ours, and they're running around the living room, oh my God, and I'm just doing chest compressions, and it was just so calm, it was so peaceful, and I'm just remain calm, and I'm talking through all of this, and Christy says, what do you want me to do? I said, just put the phone on speaker and dial 911. This was before really, I mean, we still had a home phone, right? So, and I'm talking to 911 as I'm doing this. She goes across the street. She gets our neighbor, who's an EMT. He comes up. He starts working on her. We never got a pulse. 12, 14 minutes go by before the ambulance gets there. They hit her with a defibrillator twice. They run a tube down her throat. I hear him say, I got a pulse. I get her to the hospital. She's in intensive care. She's on a ventilator. The next day I go up at the 6:30 a.m. visit, same thing. She's on a ventilator. 8:15 visit, same thing. She's on a ventilator. The 11:15 visit that morning, I go up and my mother's sitting up in the bed talking to me. And those doctors are walking around, they're talking about the work that was done on her in those early minutes. That blood flow that was able to keep going through her body when her heart stopped. Let me tell you something, I don't have that power in me. I know for beyond the fact that that power came from somewhere else that night. And I am so grateful for that. Also, that was April the 26th. That Thursday following that, I needed to get her to a cardiologist. I took her out of that hospital and got her transferred over to Birmingham, and then they hit me with the news that her organs were shutting down. Her brain was sharp. She didn't have any brain damage. But that 12 or 14 minutes without that oxygen supply to her liver and kidneys was just too much for her little weak body. And it was time to make some decisions. You know, and when she come to live with me, she didn't have an advance directive. She didn't have power of attorney. She didn't have a last will and testament. She didn't have these things. And I did research and talked to some professionals, and we went through and got all of her stuff in order, you know, when she came to live with me. And these are all things that I learned in Alcoholics Anonymous of what it meant to be of service, to fit myself to be a maximum service to God and to other people. All of this is because people like you love me enough to tell me the truth and turn that mirror around and make me look at it. May the 10th, about 11:30 that night, I lean over. My Aunt Judy was there, her sister, and said, you need to go home and get you some rest. You know, you've been up here for a couple of weeks. I lean over, I kiss my mother on the cheek. I tell her I love her. And I say, it's okay to go. She hadn't talked or done anything in over a week. And so I walk out, I've got this picture on my phone I have to show you if you want to see it. I said, I'm just going to take one last picture. So I stop it right at the door and I turn around and I take a picture of I just turn around to snap a picture of her and she's signing, I love you. She got her. And I've got that picture on my phone. And I knew when I walked out that was going to be the last time that I seen her. And so I start driving home to Oxford from Birmingham. It's about an hour. We get home, we don't even get in the bed, and my uncle calls me. By this time it's about 1 or 1:30 a.m. on May the 11th. He says, hey, you might want to turn around and get back over here. Your mama's not doing too well. We get back to the hospital, rush up to the floor that she's on, and I make the corner, and my uncle and aunt standing outside in the hall. And I knew she was gone. And it was in that moment that I learned that grace doesn't always feel good, but it's still grace. The grace in all of that is that I was there and I was present. It wasn't anything like my dad, with the experience with my dad. It was never about me. It was being there and giving her what she needed to hear in her final moments, and that was, we would be okay. Me and my brother. November of that same year, I find my brother unresponsive on his living room floor. He spent 14 days on a ventilator. Doctors are asking me, what do we do? I said, you do everything you can to save his life. He's 39 years old. He's got a daughter, and I just know that God's not done with him. I know this. And I said, and please, doctor, I have prayed too long for this moment. He said, you've prayed for this? I said, well, not necessarily this, but I've prayed that he gets to experience complete and utter hopelessness. And if this is it, then so be it. You let God do what he's going to do through this guy. My brother's been sober since November 2014. He went on to become our GSR. He was area literature chair. He did a wonderful job as the area literature chair. His name's Eric. Some of you may have met him or talked to him before. I'm sure you have. He's a principled guy. He sponsors a lot of guys. I'm not his sponsor, but one of my sponsees is a sponsor. So I like to joke. I like to joke with him, say, yeah, that's right, I'm your granddaddy, boy. It's just all of these blessings in my life that have been given to me through this program and through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and most importantly, the relationship that I was able to establish at the time, a power greater than myself. Because like I heard said last night, it wasn't about, I didn't want to hear that G word when I first come into the rooms. And I was having a problem with step 2, and my sponsor says, just make me take a drink then. You have all this power, make me take a drink. I said, I'll hold you down and force it down you, because I can do that. He said, no. He said, you should be able to just mentally transpose those thoughts into me and I'll drink. I said, I can't do that. He said, I know, and it's not because I'm more powerful than you, it's because I believe in something that's greater than me and you both that's keeping me sober. And I said, that, whatever that is, I can believe in. And the book says, just a matter of willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves is all it takes to start. It tells me to abandon myself to God as I understand Him, admit my faults to Him and to my fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge this road of happy destiny. I want to thank you guys for having me here. Paul, again, the committee, I'm not going to go through the house cleaning items again, but I do like to close with this. This is my key ring today. It's my truck key. I got a house key. I actually got 2 of them. I got a bunch of keys here for work and things like that. It's the key to my home group. I thank you for this life that I have. I thank you, my family thanks you for the life that we all have. I thank you for my keys. God bless you.